you haven't heard, and I'd be surprised if you hadn't, but just in case you haven't, the NCAA's rules people, whatever faceless entity it is called, they are working through a proposed 5-year eligibility rule. And essentially, it would be you have 5 years from turning 19 or graduating high school, whichever happens first, to play as much collegiate sports as you want. And it would get rid of red shirts. It would get rid of. Essentially, the goal is to help protect high school players. We would stop seeing 20, 25, 26-year-old players in college sports. If you get hurt, it seems like it's just kind of like a tough luck thing. There's not, I've not heard a ton about, injury exceptions, medical exceptions, but it is looking to make things as simple as humanly possible as to whether or not someone has eligibility. And it seems like the NCAA is just trying to put something set in stone that's easy, that is defendable in court, because whenever they try to implement something like this, it's 100% going to happen that people are going to take them to court because they're being prevented from making money. And so it's, the one thing that it's not talking about is, one of the big things with BYU and of the Mormon religion is to take 2 years and go on mission. That's how Tennessee got Peely in football at the age 27, 26, 27, something like that. It was his final year because he took 2 years or a year on mission or something like that. And so, there are those exceptions that have not been discussed. I have not heard anything about those in detail, which you just got to get the rule figured out and then figure out what you're going to allow exceptions to be.
Sure.
Because you don't want to, if I'm the NCAA, that seems like real sticky water to say, here it is. Sorry, if you go on mission, you lose 2 years of your eligibility, because that's not fair. And so, and I'm sure there's other things, as well. For women, what happens if they get pregnant and they, can't play for a year, like things like that. So it will also, I haven't heard much on, and I haven't read much on what it would do for international players. I guess that's where the age component helps. You're not getting a 27-year-old professional player from Spain to come play on your basketball team. So to me, it's very clear this is all to protect the collegiate portion of college sports and the high school players, which is great because that's a threat right now. I mean, you think about it. Look at LSU. Wherever Lane Kiffin goes, that man does not touch high school recruiting. He has people that do, but he could care less. He wants the transfer portal because it's easier. Look at Rick. Rick puts a lot of time in the transfer portal. Still does in high school, but Tennessee's roster is going to be built up of the production on the roster is going to be built up primarily of transfers. Now, part of that is out of necessity, but in this new age, high school players were starting to get choked out more and more. Like, it made more sense to just go JUCO or go D2 and just wait for your shot because you weren't even going to get looked at by some schools. And so, it's before we get into how it could affect Tennessee sports, and because this looks like it would go into effect during this school year. That seems like the potential timetable. And so those that are in, like, if they are within the window, they get immediately added to it. So, like, a fifth-year senior this year or a senior this year, if I understand it correctly, everyone would get one more year. If I understand it correctly in this next one. I could be wrong. But, Logan, big picture. Do you like this? Do you hate it? Do you think it's the right move for college sports? What are your thoughts?
I mean, I'll be honest with you. I don't know much about it. I haven't really seen much on it. So you know more than I do. If you're getting rid of red shirts, then like it's not really any different than just doing 4 in a red shirt. So I don't really think it's that big of a change.
Right.
So yeah, I'm fine with it. If you want to do 5 for 5, the thing I think where it gets murky is if you give a exception for a mission.
Right.
They give an exception for pregnancy, like you said, or something. Or you get this except now all of a sudden you've got like, well, you gave an exception to them, so I'm gonna try to
Right.
get an exception. So like you're just in the same boat.
Right.
So I don't know what they're gonna do. I don't know the best way forward, to be honest with you.
I don't either.
Um, you know, I I mean it instead of I think you said it starts at when you turn 19 or what did you
It's
say?
graduate high school or turn 19, whichever
Okay.
happens first.
Okay. Well, your starting point should just be once you start playing college ball. I don't know why you have to start it. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Well, because
I
with
guess,
the international players, they don't start college ball.
yeah, that's true.
Like it is an age thing because there's been such a premium on experience and older guys. And the whole point, I believe, of this is to help protect high school players.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could have, I don't know. I don't know what the best route is, but once you start giving one exception, you got to give a bunch. But then
Right.
you're like, it's really not fair religiously if a guy goes on a Mormon mission, you know, till he's 21.
Right.
So, yeah, I really, like I said, I really don't have any thoughts on it. I just don't know much about it. I haven't looked at it much. Um, like I guess they do have to fix something because some of these guys
Right.
being in college for 7 years is getting ridiculous. Even
Correct.
though I would have loved Joey to get another year,
Right.
which is a whole other topic.
Right.
But yeah, they got to do something. I just don't know what the best path forward is because there's so many arguments to be made about trying to do exceptions or whatever else.
Right. No, I mean, I agree. I think that the they got to figure out what they're going to do with the exceptions and if they're going to even allow exceptions. And if there's something where it's like by the age of 25 your eligibility is done. Like you turn 25 you're done. I mean, that works at all different levels of competitive travel sports. You got to present a birth
Yeah,
certificate to play, and when you have a date that the cutoff is, and if it's April 1st, if you're 24 on April 1st, 25 on April 2nd, congrats, you've made it. But if you're 25 on July 31st, sorry, you don't get to play anymore. Your eligibility's run out. Like, makes sense to me, because I do feel like 25 is a fair number to
well,
to throw out if because that would then allow, if someone goes on mission till 21, they can then hop in and they get 4 years. And it's I think the goal is to give someone the opportunity to play 4 years. If you get to play, if you stay healthy enough to play all 5 years of your eligibility, great for you.
well, here's the thing. Like, I still think you can do it. Your clock starts when you enroll in university or whatever. Because, like, listen, if you want to go get a 27-year-old from Europe to come play, listen, especially with how advanced athletes are nowadays,
Yeah.
guys are in their prime at 21, 22 anyways.
Right.
Getting a 27-year-old is not some big athletic advantage.
Right.
So, like Tennessee had a great receiver back in the early 2000s, Kelly Washington. He was older than everybody else. He started when he was like 23 at Tennessee because he went and played minor league baseball right out of high school for a few years.
Right.
So, like, I think the easiest thing to do is just be started when they in college.
But I
Because,
think I think my pushback to that is, thinking through how some of these guys are. Like, let's take Favor eBay. Let's say he stays in Nigeria. A G League team sees him, says, "Hey, come play G League." He plays in the G League and is playing against other top, former D1 competition, getting to play at essentially a semi lesser Division 1 level, and then comes back and his clock doesn't start at. If he were to come in at 24, you're saying he would get 5 years of eligibility from that point on,
yeah,
like
I mean,
that.
there's not a perfect one, but again, these athletes are so progressive. Like colleges are basically just professional teams, anyways.
Yeah.
So like, and it's different than like what Alabama did, right? Alabama went and got a guy that already left school, given up his
Right.
eligibility to go pro, and then he wasn't good enough, so he tried to come back.
Right.
Like, I don't. You can make caveats to it, Yeah, I don't know. I just don't think there's a great answer in general,
Yeah.
but
Well, and
it's
so
just you start saying, well, you get an exception for this, then there's like 60 more exceptions out here, and you're
correct.
back where you started.
And that's where you just have to make a blanket statement that doesn't work for everybody. You got to catch 80, 85% of the, maybe even 90% of what's going on. Otherwise, you get caught up in details and nothing ever gets fixed. So I
Yeah.
appreciate that the NCAA is at least trying to fix things. And
Yeah.
so, for Tennessee specifically, from a Tennessee lens, basketball doesn't have anyone that would be eligible. Lundblade is the closest, but he would be in his seventh year. He doesn't get anything else. Anyone else that would be eligible, I think, is going to the draft. And so, or they'll be out of, they are already redshirting, like they're a redshirt senior, so they would have been in college for 5 years. Those that it would be applicable to would be those that have played 4 years. They're seniors, they're true seniors right now. And so then they would get a fifth year that way, if I'm understanding everything correctly. And so I went and looked. For Tennessee football, this could be a huge thing. You could get Wendell Moy back. I think he's
Yeah.
probably. I think most of these guys are, except for definitely two, maybe three, are going to the draft. You get Wendell Moy back. You could get Quay Moss back. I think both of those are going to the draft. T-Lander, he's one I think is a toss-up. I think he'd have to have a great year, but I think you could probably, I think he would come back if he could next year.
Uh-huh.
So T-Lander's one you could get back. You could get Turbyville and Jackson Ross back, which would be great. You'd have your special teams taken care of. But then Kayon Lee, he would be
Uh-huh.
able to come back along with TJ Metcalf and Amari Campbell. I think those three are probably going to the draft if they
Sure.
have the years that they should. And so from a Tennessee perspective, if this does go into effect right now, or as soon as the school year starts and they all get one more year, that could be huge for the football team. That also speaks to how young this team is about to be again. That
Sure.
there's,
Which is crazy.
yeah, I think I've got 8 names. I said 8 names. Yeah, 8 or 9 names. And that's all of your seniors. Well, those
Uh-huh.
are all your true seniors. I don't think you have any. I don't think I included any redshirt seniors. I may have, but still. Um, and so from a Tennessee's perspective, it could be incredibly helpful for the football team moving forward. Now, again, I
Oh, for
think
sure.
I think all but three of those guys are gone, and
Yeah.
probably you could talk me into T-Lander going to the draft, but I think everyone else I listed is gone. I mean, Wendell Moy could go be a NFL center tomorrow if he's healthy.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I'm trying to think. Yeah. With the list you gave, I mean, I don't know. I don't know much about the DBs, so that's. But like T-Lander would probably be a guy that 5 for 5. Like he's not going to go to the NFL after
Yeah,
this year. I mean, he could because he doesn't have any more. Um, uh, but yeah, if everybody else is as good as you had hoped from a transfer perspective, if
yeah,
they're all as good as, if they don't go to the draft, that means this year is not going like you had hoped.
right,
Because that's, I mean, most of your defensive production.
yeah. Which I could see Quay Moss coming back. We don't know much about him, but there wasn't
Yeah.
a ton of buzz about him coming out of Kansas State. Now, unless he turns around and just has a Caleb Downs type year where he's just
Uh-huh.
drawing, because he was supposed to be your star. I don't know if Metcalf will end up filling that star role.
Play with,
Okay,
Metcalf will play safety.
okay, and so with that, I mean that star position gets a lot of attention, and so
Uh-huh.
he could have a big year, but still, it's overall, I think it's going to be a good thing, a net positive for the sport because we're in ridiculous. We're not only is it ridiculous that we have 26, 27-year-old guys. Again, would have loved for Joey to come back because these are the current rules, but it is ridiculous that Joey Aguilar could have come back for another year. Like, dude's too old to be in college football. Same with Diego Pavia, potentially having another year. Like, too much. Trinidad Chambliss should not have another year. But it's also
Right.
ridiculous that there's all these lawsuits. Like at some point, the NCAA's got to put a rule in effect that can stand up in court and not get beaten. And I think that's what I'm more excited for, to not have to be listening about all these different lawsuits. Now, NIL makes all that very tricky, but the NCAA needs to figure out a way to actually govern themselves, what they exist to do, instead of waiting on Washington, D.C. to get involved. And so I also think if some of the stuff that's moving that honestly I only hear Josh Pate talking about, where there's
Big Josh
movement.
Pate guy.
Yeah, I mean he's helpful. He pays attention to details, but there's movement for the conferences essentially all the conference TV deals would get pooled into one thing, and conferences would no longer have contracts with just one network. Now there'd be breakdown for distribution to be given out adequately, so like the SEC and the Big Ten would still make a majority of the money, but there's things like that. There's the movement of laws to protect all the Olympic sports and women's sports because the amount of money that the football and basketball are pulling, things like that, to where that could also make big shifts into the landscape to where they need to fix this stuff because they either need to fix the stuff or players need to unionize. We need to have a collective bargaining agreement.
Good luck with that.
I know they won't, but I'm with Danny White to where like something's got to get fixed because you're going to end up choking out the underbelly of college sports, which is what makes college sports great. Like the fact that, or teams are going to start, like a Tennessee is going to look at UTC, UT Chattanooga, UT Martin, UT Southern, and go, you are all our farm system now. Your players don't go anywhere else besides the University of Tennessee. Like when they commit to you, they're committing to the whole thing. I don't know what else we're going to be able to save college sports as a whole, because these smaller schools are not going to be able to keep up financially with these other schools. And if like the SEC choking out another one of the cupcake games, yes, I understand the argument, and I'm going down a rabbit hole, but I understand the argument of the SEC getting to play a group of 5 or lower, or an FCS team in November. Quote, not fair. Whatever. Get it. Get the argument. What that game did, though, was give another school $750,000 to $1 million to take back and invest into their smaller athletic departments and allow those athletic departments to continue. Because those schools are not going to not have football, but they may not have women's soccer or, track and field, because they're non-revenue sports that when stuff gets put on the chopping block, numbers are numbers. So anyways, all I'd say, NCAA's got to figure something out. They got to figure out how to govern themselves and figure out how to stay out of the courtroom, and hopefully blanket statements will help do that.
I have nothing to add to that. I think you hit the nail on the head. Feel better after getting that off of your chest?
Yeah, I'm sure I'll bring it up again at some point, just because I don't think it's being paid attention to enough, is how damaging to college sports as a whole our current NIL status is. And I say that as a fan of a school that is benefiting heavily from the current NIL structure, because I don't know that you get all of these transfers without the NIL structure. Maybe I'm wrong, but
you don't, but guess. Everybody else doesn't either. You also keep some of your players. So,
correct.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, something's got to change. But, again, I don't even think NIL is what's hurting.
Yeah.
I don't think NIL is the problem. I think unlimited transfers is the problem.
Well, I agree with that.
Transfer portal, I think you fix everything. Because
you're probably right.
Then it doesn't matter. Like a team can't come offer somebody double the money you're paying them.
Yeah.
No,
they can once.
They can one time, right? But Jalen Carey can't be on his 4th team in 4 years.
Correct.
Things like that. So I think transfer portal is a bigger issue than NIL, to be honest with you. That's just me, though.
How many transfers would you give? And then we'll wrap up.
How many what?
How many transfers? 1. Just 1?
1 plus if your coach leaves.
And then a grad transfer?
No.
You wouldn't do a grad transfer?
I think you're just getting too many at this point.
But from an actual school perspective, what if your school doesn't have the graduate program you want?
Nobody cares about that if you're grad transferred. It's because you're trying to play more ball.
Well, that might be true.
So
that might be true.
You wanted to do, you get 1 free transfer, a graduate transfer, or you get if you've already used your transfer but your coach leaves.
Yeah.
So what you really get is 1 free transfer and then a graduate year, because you're out of eligibility at that school anyway.
Right. You're right.
So,
no, I agree. I think the transfer portal fixing the transfer portal would solve some things, but I think there's still some of the larger issues that NIL is causing. So I don't disagree, but I think it's a both and.